Hi, welcome to our channel, Programming of Mind, where we accelerate your knowledge with concise, from high-value book summaries. Let's begin the dance of Mars and Venus. In conflict, why do arguments feel so different for men and women? Conflict is a natural part of any relationship, but it's often where Mars and Venus truly collide. For many couples, arguments can feel like emotional battlegrounds where both partners are speaking different languages. Men and women can approach conflict in fundamentally different ways, and these differences can lead to misunderstandings and further emotional distance if not addressed with care. Let's imagine a situation with Laura and Mark. One evening, Laura and Mark have a disagreement about how they spend their weekends. Laura feels that Mark never listens to her suggestions about spending time together, while Mark feels that Laura is too demanding and doesn't appreciate the work he puts into planning their weekends. The conversation quickly escalates. Mark gets defensive and shuts down, while Laura becomes increasingly emotional, feeling that her concerns are being ignored. This scenario is typical of many couples. Men tend to retreat when faced with conflict, while women often want to keep talking and work through the problem. These contrasting emotional responses can make resolving conflict much more challenging, leaving both partners feeling unheard and frustrated. The male response to conflict, withdrawal and problem-solving. When a man encounters conflict, his immediate instinct is often to withdraw or retreat. This is not because he doesn't care, but because men have been biologically and socially conditioned to handle stress or conflict by seeking space to think and solve problems. For many men, emotional withdrawal during conflict is a coping mechanism. When faced with emotional intensity, they may feel overwhelmed and instinctively detach to process the situation internally. Consider the case of David and Sophie. One day, Sophie brings up a topic she feels is important, but David, who has been under a lot of stress at work, begins to shut down emotionally. He becomes distant and starts to focus on something else, like his phone or a TV show. Sophie feels hurt by David's lack of engagement and takes his silence personally. She assumes that David doesn't care about her concerns. David, on the other hand, feels that he needs space to process his thoughts before he can engage in the conversation. The tension between them grows because Sophie feels rejected and unsupported, while David feels overwhelmed by the emotional intensity of the situation. The male response of withdrawal often stems from a desire to avoid escalation and to think logically before addressing the issue. However, to a woman, this can feel like emotional abandonment or neglect. Men must understand that their partner may need more verbal reassurance and connection during conflict. Similarly, women need to understand that a man's withdrawal is not necessarily a rejection, but rather an attempt to regain emotional balance. The female response to conflict, emotional expression and connection. Women, on the other hand, tend to approach conflict with a focus on emotional expression and connection. When faced with a disagreement, many women feel the need to talk things through, share their feelings, and ensure that they are being heard. For women, conflict is often about processing emotions and strengthening the emotional bond with their partner. Women may seek validation and emotional closeness during arguments to feel that they are understood and supported. Consider how Melissa and Ryan approach a disagreement. One evening, Melissa feels upset because Ryan forgot an important date in their relationship, such as an anniversary or special event. Instead of shutting down, Melissa opens up emotionally and expresses her hurt. She might say something like, "I feel really disappointed that you didn't remember our anniversary. It's important to me, and I need you to understand how much it hurts." For Ryan, who may prefer a more logical or solution-oriented approach to problems, this kind of emotional expression can feel overwhelming. He might try to minimize the issue, saying something like, "It's just a date, don't worry about it," in an attempt to ease the tension. However, for Melissa, Ryan's response feels dismissive, and she feels even more emotionally distant. The challenge for women during conflict is to recognize that their partner may not always process emotions in the same way. While Melissa craves emotional validation, Ryan may need some time to think things through before he can fully engage with the emotional side of the conflict. Both partners need to learn how to balance emotional expression with the space needed for reflection. The danger of escalation. How Mars and Venus handle intensity differently. Conflict can often escalate when both partners feel misunderstood. In the heat of the moment, a woman's desire to talk through the problem can clash with a man's instinct to retreat or resolve the issue on his own. This dynamic can quickly create a cycle where emotions flare and neither partner feels heard. Take the example of James and Emma. They're having an argument about how to spend their holidays. Emma wants to go visit her family, but James insists that they stay home and relax. As the argument continues, Emma raises her voice, becoming more emotional about the situation. James, feeling overwhelmed, becomes defensive and retreats into silence. This leads Emma to become even more frustrated, thinking that James doesn't care about her feelings. The escalation occurs because both partners are reacting from their emotional triggers. Emma wanting emotional connection and validation, and James wanting space to think and solve the problem. This cycle of withdrawal and escalation can lead to long-term resentment if not addressed with compassion and understanding. The key to de-escalation, communication and timing. The key to preventing escalation is learning how to communicate effectively and respecting each other's emotional needs. For men, this means recognizing that women may need more time and emotional support to process their feelings during conflict. For women, it means understanding that men might need a moment of space to collect their thoughts and come back to the conversation in a calm and solution-oriented manner. In the case of Sarah and Brian, they learned how to manage conflict by creating a pause in the conversation. When an argument began to escalate, they agreed to take a short break, giving each other space to cool down. Sarah would take time to reflect on her feelings, and Brian would use the moment to collect his thoughts and focus on a solution. After their brief pause, they would come back to the conversation with a renewed sense of understanding. This pause strategy helps both partners gain perspective before reacting impulsively, allowing them to engage in the conversation from a calmer, more thoughtful place. The power of empathy in conflict resolution. Empathy is one of the most important tools in conflict resolution. When both partners approach the argument with empathy, it creates a safer space where both feel heard and understood. Empathy allows each person to step into the other's shoes, seeing the situation from their perspective, which helps reduce defensiveness and opens the door to more productive communication. For instance, when Karen and Tom had a disagreement, they made an effort to practice empathy. Tom recognized that Karen was feeling hurt and needed to express her emotions, while Karen acknowledged that Tom was feeling stressed and needed a moment to reflect. This mutual understanding helped them navigate the conversation without escalating the conflict. Both partners were able to communicate their needs and emotions in a way that supported each other's emotional worlds. The role of respect during conflict. One of the most critical elements in any argument is respect. Regardless of how intense the disagreement may be, showing respect for your partner's feelings and opinions is essential. This means listening without interrupting, refraining from personal attacks, and avoiding contemptuous language. Let's look at David and Lisa. One evening, they have a disagreement over how to spend their weekends, but instead of attacking each other's character, they focus on the issue at hand. David might say, "I understand that you feel we haven't spent enough time together, and I appreciate that. I also feel that I need some time to recharge on the weekends." Lisa, in turn, might say, "I hear that, and I respect your need for space. Let's find a way to compromise so that we both get what we need." By maintaining respect for one another, David and Lisa avoid letting the conflict escalate into personal attacks or hurtful comments. This mutual respect is a cornerstone of a healthy, long-lasting relationship. Thank you for listening, and please like the video and subscribe for more great upcoming content that will put you in top 1% people in the world.